And we're live. Yes, yes, thank you, Adblock. I know you've updated, I don't care. Okay, I think we're good to go. And since we've got an ad soon anyway, I might as well do the warm-up whilst that's going on. I'm just going to double check my microphone. Because that seems really quite quiet. Or is it just that my headphones aren't high? Okay, definitely the headphones. At some point, I do actually need to spend some time trying to get the volume and the settings right for the voice. I do have things like equalizers on this that I could use, but I haven't. Can really make it sound weird. Make it sound even weirder. Just casually put the high up. Oh, that actually doesn't sound as bad as I was expecting. Yeah, I'm gonna have to play around with these at some point. Maybe have the high up, the mid a little bit up, and the low down. Oh, that sounds a little bit crisper than normal. I think I'm going to keep that. Look at me trying to act all professional and fiddling with sound settings whilst in the middle of a stream. Right, so warm-up time. Okay, I'm going to take my glasses off for this. One of ours has been a little bit annoying today. I think I got an eyelash in there. It's been weeping a lot. Oh, and it would help if I put the music back on after I've messed with my sound. Thought it was a bit too quiet. I was going to say, at some point, what I should do is make myself sort of like warm-up worksheets that actually have got that classic thing I've mentioned before. Yeah, where you'd have, as a kid, you'd have that thing where you had a bunch of like stuff down like this. And you'd sit there as a kid doing yeah, doing the letters. Trying to draw them up. Doing that sort of thing. Actually have like a set thing that I actually try and practice for these warm-ups. Because at the moment I do kind of just like throw whatever's on there and see what sticks. Yeah, the 1 point perspective. The really bad 2 point perspective. And the not as terrible 3 point perspective. Which is weird that that one's the easiest to like knock out quite simply. Yeah, I kind of forgot I was going to be streaming art today, so didn't really put a plan of what we're actually going to do, which is why the figure drawing is up in the top corner. Or the reference for the figure drawing is up in the corner. I was thinking maybe we can do the same as we did last time on Sunday. Yeah, where we were taking the basic line of action, trying to construct as best as possible with limited skills. Where these bits would be, and I've definitely messed up the rib cage on this. You're definitely pointing more forward. You've got our front bit. A basic bit where the rib cage is. You've got our knee back here. And here. Ankle there and there. Something along the lines of that, I think. I did the proportions off from this one again. And then that would go off that direction some way we can't quite tell because of the box hiding it. Yeah, proportions don't seem quite right. Mainly, it looks like I've been working for Pixar. Okay, that looks a little bit more reasonable. Still not quite right. Yeah, that leg. Is a lot more like that. But the other one's okay. It's all like a direct line going down where the weight is. Hits probably could have done with being a better angle as well. Because you just have a little bit of a slant in the hips. But at least we can see where the problems are. Okay, so overhead. I think that's the lower part of the hips. There's a little bit of a tilt to the body. The front kind of going off that way. Round that bottom off there so that we've got bottom of the rib cage. Shoulders. So we don't need these to be as long as normal because they aren't coming towards the camera. And this is the bit that I'm not good at. Trying to judge the shape when it's coming towards. Like, I mean, I could draw, you know, cylinder coming towards us and come on, Clip Studio, stop trying to autosave mid-stroke. Hey, GT. When trying to do, like, just a generic shape going forward, it's not so bad. But when trying to, like, figure it out from a reference, my brain just goes funny. I'm doing construction, trying to get better at constructing, you know, the basic construction of a person. So up above my head is the reference we're working from. And the ankle on this one is angled backwards. And this one is slightly higher. Not very good at all. I'm still sort of mid-learning. I mean, if I'd actually spent the past, I think, 10 years when I started actually trying and not just doing it for a week and then giving up, doing it for another week, giving up, etc., I would be a lot better by now. But unfortunately, hindsight 2020, all that, I should have started doing this a long time ago, but I figure going through the process whilst trying to talk through it might make me understand it a bit more as well as other people. It's also a good excuse for me to practice these things. Okay, so we've got one wrist that's just above the knee. I'll put the elbow about halfway there. And the wrist and the elbow on this arm kind of line up almost. Nah, it's not brilliant. So far, a lot of these have had a very, shallow line of action. I've not even attempted going for cars. I could draw the box that the car would fit in, maybe. But going for detail, I couldn't draw. I could model it from photos in 3D, but I couldn't draw it. Or at least I used to be able to model it. My skills are extremely rusty. Hey, Frop. I'm trying to think of the person. I think their name is Modern Day James on YouTube. I think they have some good videos on mechanical drawing. Was it modern? Yeah, it wasn't. It definitely wasn't James Gurney. James Gurney is the one that does the dinosaurs, and he's also really good if you like that kind of thing. But I think Modern Day James has a few videos on mechanical stuff. They've also got stuff on figures and animals as well, but they're the only one I think I've actually seen in the list, because I've got a big list of YouTubers I follow who do various tutorials, various trying to understand why we do these things. And I think they're the only person that I know off the top of my head that has actually done mechanical stuff. I mean, the FZ Design Cinema, so FZD Cinema, I think also has some podcasts on mechanical stuff. But I have to admit, I kind of skip those because I don't really do mechanical. At least I've not had a call for that yet. So pelvis. You have got kind of a angle to you, not direct. Whereas the ribs are twisted the other way. That one would be a drop directly down because that's where all the weight is. Well, I am firmly in the camp that says that anyone can learn to draw. It's just a case of practice. It might come easier to some people than others, but everyone can draw. If you can write in capital letters, you can draw. So, the typical one was like, if you can do those 3 lines of C, S, and I, you can draw. Because everything else is just a combination of those 3. An oval, all an oval is one long C and another long C. Yeah, a lot of it does seem to just come down to just pure practice and how good you are at practice. And I am not very good at practice, which is why it takes me so long to do things and to grasp things. Oh yeah, I've definitely got some proportion wrong there. Elbow is kind of above the right area now. And then when we do the leg going up, the wrist is roughly at the right place again. Okay, good. One thing I did see when looking into this the other day is that when you're doing references like this and trying to like learn poses, don't bother with the ones that you don't think you're ever going to use. Like there are some of these, like that. I'm never going to use that pose. A ballerina pose is just something I'm never going to need to do. At least for the sort of things that I'm planning. And so there's no point practicing it because if you don't see yourself using it, your brain won't bother remembering it. It's like the ones we've done so far, stepping up onto, the reference was she was stepping onto a box, walking upstairs, that sort of stuff makes sense. Sitting down makes sense. Characters will be sitting down at some point. Sort of lounging off to the side makes sense. This one on the screen at the moment, standing up at a slight angle, making it, a more interesting, like, basic pose than just standing, purely, like, almost T-pose straight with the arms down. Yeah, I can see myself using these ones. But when trying to learn something, if you can't see the reason why you're learning it, it's gonna not stick as easily. So you might have to, like, do it more than once. Well, you have to do it more than once anyway, because obviously it's practice, but you'll have to learn the same thing over and over again. Well, it depends what you're trying to, actually use the reference for. I mean, if you're trying to just, like, draw, let's say, I know that, like, one of the drawing things is fashion design. You wouldn't need poses like most of these because for the most part, you have a very basic, person shape, and then they will kind of like, sort of like scribble it over and do it very loosely. They'll keep proportions and things in mind, but they're not really trying to make it look like a person. They're trying to make it look like a piece of fashion on a mannequin, more like, than anything else. So for the most part, they're going to be wanting like side views, front views, and the same with like if you're trying to do a generic character sheet for someone, so that people can use that in future to like get other art done of their character. You're going to really want front on, side on, maybe back view, depending on the type of character. If you're going to be interested in doing like manga or comics, anything like that, any pose would possibly be used at some point, depending on what's going on in the story. I mean, and also depending on the type of comic you're drawing and how graphic it is, you might be drawing things that your reference is going to come from places like Pornhub, rather than a pose like this, which is just standing up with a slight pose to the side. I mean, you were saying earlier you're trying to draw cars. Luckily, cars when it comes down to it, if you ignore all of the detail, the car will essentially just fit into. Helps if I can actually draw a box. The car will fit into a box. So as long as you can rotate that and you can draw your wheels and you know where the wheels are meant to go. So as long as you know sort of like the very, very basic idea of perspective, theoretically, if I was slightly better, I mean, as you can tell, I don't draw cars very often. In fact, I've never drawn a car before in my life. But because it's very, like, angular, depending on what kind of car you're going for, theoretically, you can take that and go, well, okay, so from the front it's going to look, you know, like that. From the top, going from this, it's going to have the long bit in the middle, a little bit at the back. So it's there's less poses for a car, is what I'm coming at. Yeah, there's top down, side on, front on, and then various angles. But the car is going to be the car. It's not going to have a leg sticking out to one side or have a bent knee. The main part of the difficulty that I can see with doing cars is getting the details right at different angles. And I am not. Cars are like well in. If I ever bother with mechanical stuff, it's going to be like future stuff. Honestly, it could just be worth like finding some like the really quite basic ones, like the really like crap Fords, like a Metro or a Mini or even a Volkswagen Beetle. The ones that are like have very like simple shapes and not a lot of detail on them. And then once you can, you can draw that. Even if you draw it from the side on first, and then just try rotating it a little bit in your head, and then drawing it again. All these like little tiny things that help, but again, it all depends on what you're planning on using it for. If it's just because you like drawing cars, do whatever you want. It is art after all. Yeah, you can follow the prescribed rules, but if it's only for you and you're not really going to be showing anyone, you can do whatever the hell you want. You can make people with giant heads and tiny little bodies for all anyone else worries about. And then you've essentially just created the Rugrats again, but I've got a feeling that mechanical stuff is on the sort of the large curriculum that I want to start working through at some point. But it does start off with figures. And I think that's because this could be wrong and I could be making this up, but I think it's easier to do curved shapes well before you can do straight lines well. Because to do an accurate straight line, you need a lot of like practice keeping getting your wrist motion right, getting your shoulder motion right, and building up your arm strength. Whereas the curve, you can make a relatively easy curve just by like rotating my wrist. I can have a smooth curve. Whereas trying to do a smooth line, you have to control more than one joint at once, and so I mean, like here I've gone wobbly, here I've gone wobbly, down here and here I've gone wobbly. So it's not straight. And so I think quite a lot of, well, at least the first year of that curriculum that's linked below, depending on what you're watching on, there should be a box saying the art stuff or art curriculum or something. I think like 90% of that first year, it's like figure drawing and things like that. There's a bit of composition and a bit of perspective, but I think a lot of it is like organic shape stuff. But again, it's one of those annoying things with art because everyone wants to do different things and do it differently. There is no like one right answer. You know, if you never ever want to draw organic shapes, there's not a huge amount of reason for you to want to actually learn it in the first place. I mean, apart from just like getting stronger arm muscles and like better control at what you're drawing, there's not a great deal of use learning how to draw a person if you're only ever going to draw cars. Or likewise, if you're only ever going to draw figures, there's no point drawing cars because they're two separate skills. And I think I'd seen somewhere before someone had like portioned it all up. So there's things like, certain things are going to need more investment in certain skills. So let's say, perspective is a skill. Color and lighting is a skill. Character design is a skill, and so on. If you're drawing a car, you're going to need to invest more time in perspective than in character design. Because it's just what you're going to need more of when you're trying to draw a car. Or, I mean, to be fair, you need it for everything, but for the more mechanical stuff, you're going to want to, like, put more effort into getting the perspective right, because it's going to make it more obvious that it's wrong if you're not good at it. Whereas likewise, if you're only ever going to draw, say animals, you might not need as much perspective as the person drawing the car, but you will need more anatomy skills. Especially if you're drawing more than one type of animal. So I've seen quite a few different, like, I mean, just looking on YouTube, just searching, steps to getting good art or something on YouTube, you get like so many different ideas of where to start. You've got the drawabox.com is a classic one, which is a really good resource. But don't just do drawabox.com because your brain will melt. Because just like the title says, it's pretty much all about drawing a box, or a cylinder, or an organic shape in various different ways for months before you start getting into, like, plants or insects. Because a lot of the foundational stuff is how well can you draw a line. And Drawbox goes very technical, very early, constantly makes you draw like circles, ellipses, lines, curves, constantly, which is good. It will make you get better, but it's boring if you only do that. And likewise, there are some things that are like, what I'm doing now, which is all figure drawing and all these things. Like, okay, it's wonderful, but why are we doing it? What is the meaning of it? Some of them don't go into that. Some of them aren't explaining what he's trying to like get your observation skills improved, which is one of the reasons why figure drawing is a thing that people do. Looking at this picture, can I accurately judge that this is roughly where her head is? Probably not, because I'm still learning, but I'm training my eyes to try and judge it. And then again, like I say, in that curriculum down below, from what I've looked at, okay, granted, it's like I think 3 years long if you do it all. So 3.5 years if you do it in the amount of time that they say. He's essentially basically giving you a university course in art to self-study using online resources, which is brilliant, but you need to be able to like give yourself a kick up the ass to do it, which is my problem. It's only taken me a year of streaming to actually get around to the thing I originally started streaming for, which is drawing and learning. And I've not even touched the curriculum yet. Whew. Well, it's quite long, but if you think about it, most people that are good at art have been doing this for longer than 3.5 years. All those people, designing characters for games and everything, that they haven't just like picked up a pen yesterday and said, I'm going to draw characters for Overwatch. They've like spent years upon years learning the skills to get them to a point where they can draw those kind of things. So that 3.5 years isn't once you're done at 3.5 years, that's it, you never have to learn again. Because that's not how art works. You're going to be learning constantly as you do things. Oh, that leg just doesn't look right. But let's say you wanted to get into drawing animals. Okay, in a couple of years' time, you can get decent at drawing animals. But you're only going to get really good at the ones that you draw a lot of. So depending on, what you're doing, it could be that you're really good at drawing horses. And then someone comes along and says, I want you to draw me a sloth. I have a vague image in my head of what a sloth looks like. Could I draw one? Not off the top of my head, no. It would take me a while to go through and draw constantly, for probably a few weeks to learn how to draw a sloth. And then I might never have to use that again. And then someone will phone up and say, oh, we need such and such. Oh, I've never done that before. I'd best go and learn how, learn the anatomy of them, learn their poses, learn what they do, what their behaviors are. And that's just for things that exist. If you're let's say, going back to your cars, let's say, you want to be a designer. You want to design the next big thing. You want to design the next, like, Jaguar or whatever. You're going to be constantly pumping out images. You're going to be looking at other cars and going, well, that design of, like, that bumper is really good. I like how that curve is. You'll try doing that curve in your own work, seeing if it works, seeing if it looks right with what you're aiming for. Yes, it looks fine, or no, it looks terrible. You move on to another thing, and you're keeping on processing things constantly. All of the time, learning, sticking stuff in your head and going, this works, this doesn't. Remember this bit, this does good. That bit can be ignored. Forget you ever learnt it. Also, going back a little bit to what I was saying earlier, with the draw box thing, with it all being technical and don't do it on its own. That kind of is also the same thing with just what I'm doing now. I find figure drawing okay. I'm not good at it, but I can understand when I'm doing it. I understand the reasons why, and it's all well and good doing it, but it's not exactly what I want to be drawing. So occasionally, what I'll do, I mean, I did it a few streams ago. I think Saturday or Thursday. I just drew animals because I like drawing animals. It's fun. I don't care if they look good or not. It's just fun. So when you're learning, don't just spend all of your time on technical stuff trying to learn. Because you're going to get disheartened if you don't see any improvement. You're going to get bored. And you're going to kind of lose a little bit of track of why you're doing it. So every now and then, even if it could like be alternate days. Or like once every couple of days. Like just try and like think to yourself, okay, the past 2 days I have learned this, this, and this. I'm now going to try and put that into practice on the thing I enjoy doing. I mean, do I have the was it this one? Nope, it wasn't that one. It must have been. Was it illustration 6? Nope, it wasn't. Oh no, here it is. So the thing that we're going along now, doing the construction, I did it on animals instead. To try and like do it for a thing that I want to be doing more, because I'm trying to learn more for like creature design. For like some personal projects that I want to be able to do. So I want to be able to like draw animals really well. Eventually I'd also like to be able to draw like characters, but the main thing that I want is the creature design. And so, like I say, using this whole, looking at a reference, breaking it down into its primitive objects of like, what is the rib cage, what is the ribs, what is the pelvis, and all these things. I did it for animals. And I found this one really fun. Even though they don't, like, look amazing, I was really happy with how the stuff came out. Because I'd learnt how to use the thing that I'd been working on for what I enjoy. Exactly. It is why I am Bat. It's like me and a few friends have an ongoing project of creating a tabletop roleplay game, and I have been designated the person doing the creatures. and the races and like all the biology stuff. And so I've done some that some designs that I like, but I can't recreate them very well because I did them and I'm like, oh, that was really good, but I did it off the top of my head just as I was going, and now I have no idea how to recreate it. It's like I'd drawn a character that was based on a possum. Yeah, just think what if a hobbit from Lord of the Rings was a possum? And that's kind of the character that had turned up. It was fun, it was cute, it looked good, and it was going to work wonderful for the RPG system. I went to draw another one, and it looked wrong because I had no idea in my head how I'd constructed the first one. I'd just kind of gone with it. And so by doing all this like construction stuff, I'll hopefully be able to go back to that original one I made and do this on my old stuff to work out how it was that I constructed it and why it looked as good as it did. Was it the fact that I got the snout length and the head size just right for it to look fun and cute without looking wrong? Was it that I got the proportions of the chest and the pelvis right compared to the head to make it look like a good character? At the moment, my skills are not good enough for me to realise what I did right. Which is really annoying, but at the same time, at least I'm at a stage where I know that I don't know. Because I think years ago, I went through one of those phases where you just listen to a bunch of audiobooks on trying to do stuff better. And one of them had got a thing in there saying that learning any skill is basically broken down into 4 stages. There's the first stage, which is you're just learning. So you're not good. But no, hang on. You're so bad at the skill that you don't realise that you're terrible yet. The second stage is you realise, oh, I'm not really very good at this. But you still, so you're bad at it, but you recognise that you're bad. The third stage is you recognise that you're improving and that you're actually getting kind of good. And then the final stage is that you just do it. It's unconscious now. You're not having to think about it. You're just drawing, or you're just doing whatever it is. It's like, granted, I can't drive. I never bothered to learn because we have buses in England, and I can get a bus or train pretty much anywhere I need to. Should the need arise. But apparently, when you're learning to drive, when you start, you're constantly thinking about every little thing you're doing. You're thinking, okay, where are my feet? Are they on the brake? Are they on the gas pedal? Where are my hands? Are they at the right positions on the steering wheel? Do I need to turn an indicator on? Do I need to change gear? And you're thinking of all these things at the same time because you're not used to it. But then with practice and repetition of it, Eventually, you're holding conversations with someone next to you whilst you're doing all of these things automatically. You're paying attention to the road, sure, but you aren't thinking, oh, I should turn my indicator on now, I should change gear now, I should turn the steering wheel and press the gas pedal now. That just happens whilst you're having a conversation with your friend in your passenger seat about what pub you might want to go to later on. And it's the same with any skill. You start off having to constantly think about these things. Like right now, trying to think about constructing these figures. They're all like just basic shapes, you know, but like, are they in the right position? Are they the right proportions to each other? Are they the right angles? Are the have I got the head shape roughly the right distance from where it needs to be? Are the arms right, and so on? But cut to the people that have been doing this for years, they will just start with a head and be like, oh yeah, just draw that, and they'll be drawing it because in their head they already know all of these little things. They've done this bit that I'm working on so much that it's just ingrained in their head. So that whilst they're working, they're just seeing it. They just know that when they're drawing a body, they kind of do this, and okay, the back comes here, and they've got like a hips there, and the legs come out here, and so on, and you got a neck, and arms would go about here. But because they've been doing it so much, they can just like skip sections because they're already like their muscle memory already knows what to do. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do all of this stuff on stream, because I know from coming from someone that's learning themselves, looking at a YouTube tutorial where someone's explaining how to do it, and they just draw it perfectly first time. Sometimes it's extremely disheartening because you try it and you don't get it the first time. Even though you followed their exact same thing, you followed the exact steps that they did, yours does not come out first time perfectly well, perfect like theirs does. And it can feel extremely disheartening. You're like, well, I followed the tutorial. Why isn't mine amazing? And that that probably leads to at least a good chunk of people just not continuing because they assume that they followed the steps, they should be good. And so I want to be following the steps and suck. But all of these things I'm saving. I should actually name them proper things rather than just clicking save and having them as illustration 9. I should date them. And I should also start saving the streams. At the moment I'm saving the streams, but I'm not publishing them on the YouTube because they're a bit rambly at the moment, so I'm not that confident in the drawing. But eventually, when I start getting better at drawing, I'll put them all out. And hopefully that way, someone will be able to turn up and look at the start, the first art stream I did, and the most recent one I would have done. And they can see the improvement, and they'll see from the dates how long it took. And then they can also see the process of how I got there. Is it a weird long-term goal? Yeah. Will it be helpful for anyone? Maybe. I'm going to give it a try anyway. There's a pose I'm never going to use. Yeah, at the end of the day, all these like art streams, they are mostly selfish. I'm going to admit they're basically a reason to force myself to practice because I'm really bad at making sure I practice. But what I do want to do is kind of like, if nothing else, if I end up like not doing like the full on thing for you, putting it all on YouTube and everything like that. At the very least, it would be nice to like have a little community of people that are learning it and they can turn up, listen to me ramble whilst I do this, whilst they're also practicing. And then obviously every now and then some games to like break up the monotony of like doing the same bits of art over and over again. Oh, thanks for the follow, GT. These should be. Bit further forward. Because the ankle is lining, the back of the ankle is lining up with like the front of the stomach. If you go directly down. What I'm dreading with all this sort of stuff is when it comes to doing the anatomy and like remembering muscle groups and things like that. So obviously, most people know that the basic ones. Like we have one at the front, one at the back. We've got the big calf muscle at the back. We have like the abs and all. We know the basic ones. And then you see like an artist's model of it, and it's just like that's like 50 muscles. And you know the names of them, like the actual names of them all. And you aren't a scientist, you're an artist. Why do you know the name of that muscle that no one realizes exists? Most scientists don't know that some of these muscles are a thing. Yeah, unfortunately, that is that. I was talking to someone, another streamer, a friend that has the same issue. We were talking about it the other day. It's like there are so many skills I would like to either learn or get better at. I would love to learn blacksmithing, but A, where the hell do I do that? B, when will I do that? And C, where do I get the money to do that? Another one, I would like to get better at carpentry because I can make things. I do know enough to be able to like make something from scratch without I say with a plan. I can basically do IKEA stuff without needing like a guide. Like I made my sister a rabbit hut once, and basically I designed it to make it all foldable, worked out how it would be done, and then I made it for her. And it turned out, 7 out of 10. It did its job. It worked. It just wasn't as pretty as it could have been. After I'd finished it, I was like, I could have done that better, I could have done that better. But again, it comes down to, I'd need enough money to just be able to say, okay, I can go down, I'm going to go down to the place that sells wood, I'm going to buy 60 quid's worth of timber, I now need to find the time to create something, and then, do I want to keep it at the end of the day, or was I just doing it for fun? Because spending 60 quid on, like, lumber to make a table is great if you want to keep the table. But if you're just going to, like, chuck the table away or give it away to someone, sometimes you don't have that kind of spare money to just throw around. And again, there's things like, I need to find the time for it. I mean, I at least know where to learn that, because I have a bunch of, like, books on it, and there's obviously YouTube has woodworking stuff on. And for the most part, as long as you have the basic tools, you can do it from wherever you are. I mean, of course, that's another problem. I currently live in an apartment block, and so if I'm like using a circular saw, neighbours are probably not going to be that happy with me, especially those underneath me. And I don't want to be that neighbour that doesn't care about anyone else. So for learning more about, the carpentry stuff, I'd have to wait till I moved out and, either got a place of my own or somewhere that was at least not an apartment. Find a nice house somewhere that's like only one side of the house is attached to the next door neighbours. So if I work on the other side, it won't be as loud, and I won't feel as much of a nuisance. There's obviously art that I want to get better at, which is where my focus is lying. That is like the one I've chosen. This is the thing I need to get good at. I mean, there's also, I'd like to learn some more musical instrument stuff. But again, I got the instruments. It's just finding the time and the energy around everything else to do these things. And it gets to a certain point where you have to, like, start thinking to yourself what's worth pursuing. At the end of the day, if I got better at carpentry, apart from if I ever needed a new table, I could make one for more money than it cost to go and buy one from IKEA. But, it would be a little bit more sturdy, but it would cost time and more money. Is that a worthwhile skill? On its own, yes. Compared to everything else I want to learn, not so much. The same with the blacksmithing. I would love to do it just because I love the idea of it. I like the idea of learning all of these old skills that we don't learn much these days. Like, I'd love it if I could find somewhere that I could buy some flint from, and I could learn how to make a flint knife. Like, learn how to do flint knapping. It's a completely pointless skill. because I don't live in the outdoors. I'm not an early human. I do not live in the Stone Age. Would it be cool to be able to say, oh yeah, that knife, I made that using old skills? Yeah, it would be amazing. It would be cool. It would be really, really fun to be able to say, I made that. So I learned a skill that we used to that we knew 20,000 years ago. I made something the same, following their same sort of ideas. I did it, and I made one now, using just some rocks. It would be, like I say, it'd be really cool to be able to do that, and just have that as a skill. Is it useful? No. Unless a nuke goes off and all electronics are fried, and someone comes and steals all the tools that we currently have, there is no need for me to learn how to make a flint knife. It would just be a cool skill to have if I ever have the time. And unfortunately, that is a lot of the skills, a lot of the things that I want to learn are kind of ending up in that category of it would be cool if I could, but it's not a priority. Like, if I came into so much money that I never had to work a day in my life, would I buy myself a nice house and stream myself learning how to blacksmith? You're goddamn right I would. I'd say, welcome to the forge. We're gonna learn how to make a thing. Or and do the same with carpet and learn it all on stream and just have fun. I would totally do that. That'd be amazing. Unfortunately, I have a day job. And I, basically anyone who has got like a full-time, like 40-hour a week job knows how awkward it is, trying to get that done, trying to like exercise and eat healthy, and then trying to learn skills at the same time. Don't have a lot of time left over at the end of the day. You kind of got to pick one or two and stick with those. And it's a shame. But saying that, we are at a point in history where we can do that. Yeah, it wasn't even like, what, 100 and something, 120 years ago. It's like, right, you're in the factory now from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. because we haven't invented the normal work week yet. So we're going to work you until you basically have no energy left. You go home, you eat, you sleep, you wake up, you go back to the factory. You repeat for every day of your life until you die. You don't have time to learn things because you're too busy trying to not starve. Whereas now, okay, granted, not everyone in the world. There's a good portion who can't. Hopefully, at some point, we'll get to a point where they can as well. But at least over in like England, Europe, America, and like all of the richer countries, the more built up countries, we have free time, and we have to remember that we didn't used to have this. So as much as I hate doing a 40-hour a week job, at least it's not a 70 or 80-hour a week job. I have got time that I can spend on playing games, talking to friends, learning to draw. Well, that's the if you just kind of learnt it as you were going along, and you didn't really you didn't like specifically focus on it, and you just kind of like learnt it. That's not so much of a worry because you just naturally picked it up and you got good at it. Yeah, as much as I hate it, I'm not too bad with using Microsoft Excel. I picked it up whilst I was working. No one ever taught me. I just learned how to use Google to see how you did things. And now I am, for better or worse, one of the people in the place that I work where if anyone needs something done with Excel, a bunch of people will email me and say, hey, can you help? And I've learned how to say, no, I can't, go away. Which at first I didn't, and then I ended up with too much work and I got stressed. Because what they mean when they say is, can you help? They mean, can you do it for me? They don't mean, can you teach me? They mean, here's what I want, you do it. But I never set out to learn how to use Excel. It's just something I picked up as I went. And the skills I picked up from that have also had a knock-on effect of other things that I've had to do with the job. Which, on the one hand, yay, I'm still in a job. You know, I have a wealth of knowledge that people in the company don't have. And if I just decided to up and leave at any point, I would sit there with a bucket of popcorn and watch the place burn because they wouldn't know how to do a lot of stuff. I'm totally not planning on doing that when I hand in my notice at some point. Just sitting there with popcorn and watching the panic. Yeah, the whole thing with like some skills. Like, let's say I know that one of the people I know he's recently got a new job. He's working with animals. Would never have thought he would be someone that worked with animals in my life from knowing him, because he's someone that did art before. If he carries on with that job, he will naturally pick up how to be a better animal handler. He will know that, when he's working with this certain type of animal, it's best to do this. And when with, this other type of animal, it's best to do this. And so he will naturally pick that skill up if he sticks to the job. Is it a skill he went out expecting to gain? No. But he's still going to learn it. And I wish all skills were like that. Unfortunately, to get certain jobs, you have to have the skills already. Like, if you could get a job, like drawing cars, for example, and they didn't really mind if they weren't that good, because they just want, maybe it was for like clip art or something, and you're like, as long as it looks like a car, we're good. You could learn on the job, you could get better, because you'd be drawing these things over and over again. Eventually, you'd start getting better because it's just part of what you're doing every day. And unfortunately, that's kind of how human brains work. If we repeat something enough times, we get good at it, even if we don't want to get good at it. Or even if it's something that we don't want to do. Yeah, if you overeat too often, if you gamble too often, if you take certain things too often, you will eventually just do that. Because your brain is like, yeah, that was a good thing. We did that. We got the good thing out of it. Do that again, do that again. And eventually you're addicted to a thing. But then when you try and stop, it's really difficult. Yeah. So the main thing with learning to draw, at least, is making lines. Because that is essentially the thing that we're practicing the most, is drawing lines. Doesn't matter how you're doing it. You could be doing the draw a box exercises where you draw the box and you do the perspective and you get good at drawing these things constantly. You get better at drawing the lines. You could be doing figure drawing. Eventually, once you get good at it, you're going to be learning the same thing. You're going to be getting good at drawing the lines. One reason why I think drawing and painting are meant to be like they're two separate skills. Because with drawing, you are drawing the outlines, and you might be drawing like texture detail, like very basically. Whereas painting, it's not quite the same because you're not using the same process. Which is why, there are people out there that can draw like amazing like technical drawings, but they could not paint a landscape because they just don't know how to paint. But they're really good at doing nice crisp lines to indicate this is a thing that needs to be here and here and here. Likewise, if you ever had, if Bob Ross was still around, you couldn't say, I want you to draw me a perfectly accurate car. Because he would look at you as if to say, that's not a happy tree, go away. He would say it nicer, while stroking a small woodland animal, but he would still have that same look in his eye of, I don't do that. That's not my skill set. Well, yet people forget how quickly we've got to where we are. It wasn't a couple of 100 years ago that there was like a 50-50 chance you'd even get out of childhood. It's one of the reasons why the whole thing about the average age of people is so low in the Stone Age. Not in the Stone Age, in like the medieval times. People could still live to be 80 or 90 years old. The reason the average age was so low is because kids kept on dying because we couldn't keep them alive. Because we didn't know how bacteria worked. We didn't have medicine. So everyone died early. So if you got to a point where you were like 14, it was a miracle. And that was only like, that was a few 100 years ago. So a lot of the stuff that we have is still based on trying to survive. It's why stress is a big deal. Originally, stress, an amazing system. You think you're in danger. You've heard something in the trees behind you. You've heard a growl. You've seen reflective eyes in the night. Whatever it is, you've seen or heard something that means danger. Your body flips the switch. Danger mode activated. Get ready to run away or beat the thing to death until one of you is left. Take your pick. Either way, we've cranked up your heart rate, we're cranking up your blood pressure, we're flooding you with adrenaline. Go for it. You either then run like hell and escape, and when you slow down, your body knows you're no longer in danger, it can turn the switch off. Or you've beaten the thing up and killed it. At which point, again, your body's like, we're safe now, turn the switch off. We still have that system, it's called stress. The problem is, there's no easy thing for the body to understand, okay, we're safe now, flip the switch. So the on switch is still there. We're getting stressed. Something is making us feel bad. Something is making us feel anxious or whatever it is. Switch goes on. How do you turn it off now? Some people do find, they will go for a run. If they get stressed, they will exercise and it works for them. Other people do other activities. I know that when I've been, I am a known stress eater because it's a thing that if you're eating, your body uses that to override the signal of stress because, like, well, if we're eating, we're obviously safe. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here eating, would we? We'd be running. So if we're eating, we must be fine. Turn off the other system. And that is why people eat to deal with stress. Because it just overrides the stress system. And there's various other things that people, you can do. Some people, drink alcohol. And it just relaxes the body enough that the body's like, well, if we're this relaxed, we can't be stressed. Turns off the system. But the problem is these are not good ways of coping with it because they're not healthy for you. But they're the only ways that work for some people. I think one of them as well is once you're in a habit, it's your brain has evolved to go with the path of least resistance. So if you have two options in front of you, your brain is more likely to pick the one it knows because it knows how to do that. It's like, let's say, for example, me today. I had the option of I could get up, I could put some food into the pressure cooker, I could make myself a nice, chicken and broccoli, little casserole thing, and it'll be taste amazing, and it'll be healthy for me. Or I can click the button on the internet that says bring me a pizza. One of those two options is very, very easy. The other one takes a tiny amount of effort. And it's the hard part of breaking a habit is having enough energy to say, well, no, we're not going to go with the easy option. We're going to force ourselves into the harder option. And you do that enough times, eventually that becomes the new norm and that becomes easier than the other thing. But you've got to do that a lot of times in a row to break the habit, and it's tough. And it's also one of the reasons, depending on if you're psychologically addicted to something, that's the problem you have. Like, I eat too much at times. I'm trying to lose weight. It's not easy when your brain is constantly telling you to eat. But I know that that's not my body depending on it. That's me being lazy. It's a psychological problem that I've got. I know that. But then you've got the chemical dependence where it is actually a lot harder because your body is telling you, we need this now, otherwise bad things are going to happen. It's the reason why, it's so hard for people to stop smoking. Because the body gets used to having this chemical that it does not normally make. When that chemical is not there, the body starts to panic because it's got all of these receptors that are there ready for this chemical to go into that are not got anything in. And so the body goes a little bit crazy. And that's, again, one reason why, going cold turkey on things can be really hard for people. Because the body is literally screaming at them, you need this thing, why do you not have this thing? Whereas some things, if you wean yourself off it slowly, it's a lot better. It's a lot more manageable if if you say you're a smoker, smoking 20 a day. If you cut yourself back to 15 a day, you still have the chemical. Your body's not panicking. But you don't have as much, so your body can slowly get rid of some receptors. And then after a while, you can cut back from 15 to 10. And repeat. And eventually, after some time and some willpower, you're not addicted to them anymore. Whereas if you tried to say, right, I'm not smoking anymore, you put them all down, you stop touching them, a day after the last cigarette, it's all out of your system, your body starts to panic. And annoyingly, let's say, it's all because of just how we have evolved. And society has evolved faster than biology can keep up with it. Now that photo is rather risque. I'm Anyone from Twitch, if you're watching this is the clothed option. These photos I'm using are the clothed models. Do not shout at me. It's art. Yeah, I can definitely see this is a pose that I might have to use things similar to this. Depending on whether or not one person who I know commissions me again at any point, because these are the kind of poses she asks for her character. Well, that's it. I mean, having it so that you make it as hard as possible to do the bad habit. So, like, for me, I know that, ordering takeaway is a bad habit. I'm getting better at it. I have not had it as much as I normally do. And it's wonderful. I've lost weight just from that alone. But to make it harder, I can just delete my account. If I want to order again, I would have to then go through the effort of creating a new account. I can also block the website. So that if I want to do that, I would then have to unblock the website and then create a new account. And all of these steps. And it can help. It has kind of helped a few times in the past. But then there are some times where I'm like, no, I really want a pizza. I'm willing to put in the effort to go through all of these steps to get that damn pizza. But likewise, it also having the opposite thing also works, making it so you don't have as many steps between you and the good habit that you want to replace the bad one with. So, like, I picked up an Instant Pot last week on Black Friday sale. So, electric pressure cooker. It lets me cook some good food quite quickly without me having to stare at it. I can dump a bunch of things into a pot, put a lid on, tell it to cook, and an hour later, I have food. So what I need to get into a habit of doing is setting it up whilst I'm on my lunch break from work, because I work from home. So on my lunch break, I can walk into the kitchen, I can dump some chicken, some vegetables, some herbs and spices and water into that thing, seal the lid shut, and tell it at 4 o'clock start cooking. And then 4 o'clock will turn up, it starts to cook, 5 o'clock hits, work ends, I've already got food ready to go. I don't need to order anything. That's what I need to start doing. But obviously, I've only had that thing for a week, so I'm very much not in the habit of doing that right now. But to make things easier, what I could do is pre-portion what needs to go into the bowl. So get some freezer bags, a couple of chicken breasts, handful of broccoli, various other vegetables, seal it up, freeze it in the bag so that when the time comes, I can just open the bag, empty it into the pot, and that's it. That's the level of preparation needed. Is open freezer, open bag, turn bag upside down into pot. Done. That would be good. Same with like making my own spice mixes. Effort up front, but if I can just then, put 2 teaspoons into the pot, all good. I don't have to worry about anything then. I don't have to think of recipes because the recipe is already done there, ready to go. But like I say, it's making it trying to like get these things done so that there's as few steps as possible between the good habit and you, and then there's many steps as possible between the bad habit and you. Because then that comes back to what I was saying about the human brain earlier, wants to take the easiest option. So if you've made it so that the good option is the easiest option, wonderful. Your brain is now, you know, biologically more likely to go for the good option because you've made it easy. And then you just have to do that with everything, every skill you want to do, really. It's like if you want to draw more, make sure that you've always got a pencil and a notepad nearby. So that if you're ever bored, if you're ever like sitting there watching a film and it's getting to a boring part, the notepad's right there. It's not much effort to pick it up and do a little bit of a scribble. Do a bit of practice. Draw what's on the screen. Whatever. Draw. Whatever's on the table in front of you. Whilst you're or waiting, like if you're on a commercial break from TV or something, assuming anyone still watches the normal TV. You can just do that as like, oh, but I've got 3 minutes to kill because Twitch is putting a damn break on. I could just pick up the notepad and do a bit of scribbling. It's just making it so that it's easy for you to practice the thing you want to do. And as I mentioned, like an hour or so ago now, it's one of the reasons I wanted to stream doing these things was because now people know that I do this. If I stopped doing these streams and just played games, there are people who have followed me that will be like, well, hang on, when are you next doing the art streams? Which will mean, which would then pressure me to go, oh yeah, okay, I'd best do an art stream, hadn't I? Which will then make me more likely to do more art streams, which means I practice more, which means I get better. Which is why I said, like, inherently that one of the main reasons of me doing these art streams is selfish. Because it's going to mean that I actually spend more time doing the good thing. And it also helps, that I've got the reason behind wanting to learn. So I have a long-term goal of like getting the stuff for the TTRPG done and getting better at that. I've got the goal of wanting to be able to like have like an entire series on YouTube of like, here's 3 years of me learning how to not suck at drawing. So that, people can look at the journey. And even I could look at the journey and go, look at the first one and go, I used to suck. Look at the last one. I still suck, but nowhere near as bad. Well, yeah, everyone's going to compare themselves with someone that they actually admire. I mean, there's several artists I look at their stuff and go, damn, that's really good. Why can't I know the reason why I can't draw like that? But in my head, I'm like, why can't I draw like that? And the answer is because you're not bloody trying. Get better, and then you will get better. So you shouldn't compare yourself to other people. I think the way I've heard it said is don't compare your life story to someone's highlight reel. Because what you're seeing from like YouTubers who are really good at drawing, you're only ever seeing the things that they're confident enough to show. They're not showing the times when they've tried it and it's failed horribly and it looks horrible. Because that's not going to get them internet clout. So you're only ever going to see their really good polished work. Whereas when you look at your stuff, you're seeing all of your stuff, even the stuff that's really bad. It's like going back to this. Was it this one that I? No, it wasn't. That was it. It was this one. So going back to like I did some of these the other day, and these look a lot better than what I've done today. Because I wasn't trying to like be as accurate with like what the lines are. I was literally going, right, it's a cylinder in vaguely this shape and direction. Boom, it's done. So like some of them, I quite like how they've turned out. Whereas today's ones, not so much. Yeah, some of them aren't bad, but for the most part, they're not great. If this was YouTube, you would never have seen me draw these. I would have only ever shown you the ones that I thought looked good. If I was that kind of YouTuber. Yeah, I'd have drawn 50 of them and gone, well, those 5 look good. Those are the 5 that go into the YouTube video. No one's ever going to see the other 45. But yet, it doesn't matter how old they are. They could be 6. They could just have a natural talent of it. But the problem with talent is it only gets you so far. All talent is a kickstart. You could be 6 years old and talented and be as good as a 20-year-old who's practiced for 10 years. The difference is that person that knows how to practice and knows they need to practice will keep getting better. If you have spent 10 years relying on the fact that you're talented and never really trying, you're never going to get better. So yeah, all talent is it just gives you a jump start. It's a boost at the start to get you going. But if you then just continue just to coast on your talent, you will not improve. And I'm saying that as one of the generation of, gifted children, quote unquote, that was really good at things and was constantly told I would be amazing, and then no one actually did anything to help. And so I hit 18 and was like, why should I care? Because there's nothing for me to do. And so I just never tried learning anymore. Which is why I was really bad at learning after that point. Unless it was very much a thing that I wanted to do, I didn't give a damn. I spent most of my college years just playing pool in the common room. I got very good at playing pool. That's a skill I learnt and still know. But the chemistry class that I had, I don't remember any of that. Didn't need to. So yeah, don't let people that have are just talented at a young age get you down, because that's all it is. It's either talent or they have a really horrible upbringing and their parents are forcing them to do it. Yeah, there are a lot of people out there that, they might not want to do the thing they're really good at, but their parents wanted to do the thing and they're making their children do it because they couldn't. So the kid might be amazing, but they might be like, I just want to play Call of Duty. But the parents are like, no, you can't do that. You must learn chess, and only chess. Because we couldn't, so you will. And you will go to tournament and all these things. And that kid could hate chess. From the bottom of their heart, they could just despise it. But because their parents had told them to get good at it, or they get beaten, they will get good at that thing. But from the outside, they'll just look talented. You'll just think, oh wow, this kid's really good at chess. When really, the reason they're good is it's not a nice thing. And as soon as they have the option to not do it anymore, they will just stop. They won't care. So really, all you need to do is just need to be at the point when you realise I need to be able to be good at this, which means I need to learn and practice, and then do the learning and the practice, and then you will get good. Nice and simple steps that are horrifically annoying to put into practice, but the steps are easy, technically. Yeah. Just know that you need to get better. Do the things you need to do to get better. Congratulations, you are now better. Right, it's past midnight now, so it's time to see if there's anyone online to raid before this next ad starts. Click that for snooze to make sure it doesn't start now. Let's have a... Oh, it's Stars. Stars is the only person online again. Okay. Yep, it's just Stars that are on. Oh well. He's a good person to raid anyway, so I've got no problem raiding him 2 days in a row. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching. We didn't do great today, but we did something, and that is the important bit. We practiced. They might not have come out looking as good as we wanted them, but that doesn't matter. We did them. It's mileage, it's practice, it's getting these things down on paper and repetition, and that's going to get us good. So, until next time, tomorrow, probably do another art stream. I think we are going to do like a couple of days of art, then a couple of game, and a couple of art, and sort of cycle like that. It seems to be the best way of doing it at the moment. But yeah, so click start the raid. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching. Should be back tomorrow. And until then, have a good one and say hi to Stars for me. Take care. Oh, bye-bye.